Today, students, today we will start to look at our lesson 2, which is a continuation of the assessment of FET economics in the diverse South African classroom. And the first slide is dealing with the purpose of assessment, including feedback as a form of assessment. Now, firstly, we need to look at the value of assessment for teachers, learners, parents, and the school. And in order to assess you, you need to study your learning unit under paragraph 4.3 in the learning unit. Now, assessment has the following value for teachers. Teachers can determine with greater certainty the readiness of learners to tackle a new theme or to proceed to a higher grade. So from the assessment, teachers can establish whether they can move on with their learners to a new topic or a new theme. They can also determine the quality of their teaching effect. We only know whether learners have in fact learned after we've assessed them. So from the assessment, we can then determine what the quality of our teaching effect was. The value of assessment for learners is that they can ascertain whether or not their knowledge is on par with the expected objectives. So learners know that we've covered the topic on the demand curve, and from the result of that assessment, they will then know whether the knowledge is on par with what is expected. In other words, if they got 7 out of 10, it means they have 70% return rate on their objectives. They can also compare their level of achievement with that of the rest of the class, the so-called norm reference assessment criteria. The value for parents of assessment is that it enables parents to see whether the child satisfies the expected objectives and how he or she progresses at school. Normally, schools would inform parents, depend on the type of school, on a regular basis after each and every assessment how the learner has done. So then parents can be on par as to what is happening with their child. It also enhances the parents' involvement in the school and the teaching and learning situation. If the parents are satisfied or not satisfied, they make contact with the school, and in that way, they are involved in the teaching and learning situation. Assessment, the value for the school is massive, especially for high stakes assessments such as the grade 12 examination, because it determines the status of the school. School normally acquires status according to their assessment results. Then to move on from there, but still linked to assessment, is the feedback. Feedback is after we've assessed the learners, or while we assess the learners, we make comments and on the assessment, and we expect learners to read it when we return it to them and then to act upon it. So feedback is the lifeblood of teaching and learning. It helps teachers to identify a problem area and to design strategies to prevent such problems. Good feedback should be immediate. In other words, learners shouldn't wait long for their assessments to be returned. It should be regular. It should be explanatory rather than judgmental. We can't write on an assessment feedback that the learner has done badly. We should rather explain how the teacher sees how the learner responded to a particular question. It should be concise and it should be clear. In other words, we shouldn't write long paragraphs, but it should be clear what we intend saying to help the learner. Now, in your assessment 4.5, there is a question on feedback to assessments. Your answer must refer to an article in your learning unit 4. And that article is about student tell us what good written feedback looks like. Now, this article is in the form of a link, so you need to open the link. You must go read it in order to answer the question. Remember, you are an academic. You are busy with academic writing, so you need to engage with your study material. And this question requires you to go look at this specific article on written feedback. No marks will be awarded if you did not use and refer to the article. So if you write about good feedback should be immediate, regular, explanatory, concise and clear, you won't get marks because that is not in the article. You must go read the article, what the article is saying. And in the article, you must search for students' views, the discussion in the article and the recommendations to build your answer. Right. So that concludes the purpose of assessment, including feedback as a form of assessment. And this slide also referred to question 4.5 in assessment 4. The next slide, we need to look at the factors that needs to be considered in the planning for effective assessments. Now, what is the factors that we need to consider for the planning of effective assessments? It's the type of tests and questions. Second factor is we should set well-balanced tests. The third factor is the time factor that must be considered. Fourthly, questions must be representative. In other words, it must cover the whole syllabus up to the stage of the assessment. It also deals with the arrangement of questions. And lastly, it deals with the completeness and clarity of data. Now you will notice here by the factors that certain factors like the well-balanced test and the arrangements of questions is highlighted or it is in bold. The reason for that is because there is an assessment question 4.6 that deals with this. So you need to pay special attention when I discuss that part of the work. So the types of tests and questions is the first factor that needs to be considered. In other words, is it an oral test? It is the essay type test? Is it the short answer test? The choice of the test will depend on such factors such as the aims and the time available. For example, formal assessment is prescribed by the CAPS document as well as by the ATP. So it tells us exactly what type of assessment should be set. One of the objectives of an assessment is to measure whether the teaching goal has been achieved so as to plan remedial work if necessary. Then the next factor is well-balanced tests. A common error is to compile tests that consist mainly of questions at the knowledge or the cognitive level 1 as per the Bloom's taxonomy level. We spoke about this in the previous lesson 1, where we looked at Bloom's and we said not all questions in an assessment can be at the same level. Level 1, for example, just asking for the definitions, for the advantages, disadvantages. Right? A balance should be maintained between knowledge, understanding, application skills, and other abilities. Teachers dealing with different grades have to decide which objectives they are going to assess. Some themes in a curriculum cover wider range, wider field than others, or are more important in certain grades and require more intensive studies. Certain questions test knowledge only, and teachers should make sure that they also include questions that test insight and application skills. So a balance should be maintained between the different levels. So make sure that you understand what is meant by well-balanced tests. It will be good if you can go back to your Bloom's taxonomy again. The time factor is normally prescribed by CAPS and by the ATP. For example, a control test in economics. for 100 marks is 60 minutes. In an examination for paper 150 marks, it is 90 minutes, 1.5 hours. So the time factor is prescribed and we must be aware of it, and we must set, when I say I mean we as teachers, we should be aware that we should not set questions, a question paper that will exceed the time limit that is allocated for its completion. Then the question must be representative. We cannot only ask questions from one specific topic. We need to cover all the topics that we have done up till that moment in time. We want our learners to do well because we know that they are good in this specific section. No, it cannot be like that. It must cover everything that was covered. We know that learners normally struggle with microeconomics, but despite that, we need to set a question on microeconomics. Then the arrangement of the questions. We arrange the questions, and you can see that is also bolded. In other words, that must also be discussed in your assessment form. Arrange questions from easy to difficult to give learners confidence. They study with an easy question, and in that way they build up on their self-confidence. Questions that require knowledge of terminology may be followed by questions that require learners to use this terminology, but not the other way around. In this regard, we can look at old question papers from the grade 12 economics database. Note how section B questions are structured in a particular order to make up the 40 marks. Right. Then the completeness and the clarity of data. Your question paper should be clear in terms of the instructions that is being said. There must be no ambiguity. We can also, in order to make sense of this particular subheading, the factors to be considered in the planning for effective assessment, we can also go look at the video on the practical aspects of planning assessment. Note assessment 4.6 that is dealing with the planning of effective assessment and the factors to be considered. Know that the verb that is being used there is substantiate. What does substantiate mean? It means to support a claim with facts. The doing word, the action verb, determines what we must do to answer a question. The next slide deals with the types of questions for tests and exams. Now, in a test or in an exam, normally for economics specifically, we have three sections. Section A, which is normally one-word answers. Section B, which is one word, as well as longer type of questions. And then section C that we normally refer to as an essay question. It is one set question for 40 marks. Now in section A, we have short answer questions such as multiple choice, fill in the missing word or words, true or false, or match columns A and B. That is your section A or your short answer questions. For section B, we have questions where we have to write down one sentence or two sentences. And this is especially applicable for case studies. We may also have to write 3 to 4 sentences depending on the marks. And we also have tests based on cartoons. These case studies and cartoons are popular section B questions. Why is it popular? Because it tests comprehension. The teacher can assess whether the learners understood what they have learned beforehand and also during the assessment. Can they apply what they have learned during the year now in the assessment? And the section B questions from grade 10 to grade 12 normally is made up of 40 marks, but it consists of different subsections. Question 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, question 2, question 2.1, 2.3, etc. Question 3, question 4. And it leads up to 40 marks. Then the section C is our essay questions. And essays in economics refers to the 40-mark questions. In other words, the long question. Now, this type of question, it can assess whether the learners know the facts, and also assess insight. It all depends on the type of question. In contrast to the short answer test, the essay provides an opportunity for learners to prove their insight by independently selecting subject matter and arranging it into a logical, original, and complete structure. Now, the structure of an essay question is normally in the form of an introduction, the body, and the conclusion. The introduction and the conclusion is normally 2 marks each, and the body is 36 marks. If we add it together, it gives us 40 marks. The essay is an answer to a question in the form of a discussion. Essays vary in the degree of correctness. In other words, there's no right or wrong. The teacher must read what the learner has answered and then assess whether the answer is in line with what was required. For you as a teacher to compile an essay test is certainly not as easy as one might expect. The formulation itself may determine whether a factual answer is sufficient or whether comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, or even assessment is required. Each of the following formulations require different abilities from learners. Learners need to be told that they must read the essay question. What is required? Does the essay question ask for a description, a discussion, comparing, evaluation, comment, to write a report, contrast, to explain, supply reasons, expound, distinguish, write an essay, etc. Right. Now for essays, you must be aware that question 4.7 in assessment 4 deals with the essay question. In other words, you need to answer an assessment question based on the essay. And you will notice that the key words there is critically evaluate this method. Now that is a big action verb. What does critically evaluate means? It means you must weigh this essay question. There should be a balanced discussion and evaluation of the strengths, the weaknesses, and notable features of the essay. To read more about it, go to paragraph 5 in your 4.5 in your learning unit on essay. In conclusion then, when you need to answer this question 4.7, where it states that you must critically evaluate this method, you need to go to your reading material on essays, go see what an essay is, firstly. That is the notable features of the essay. Compare it, for example, to short questions. Lift out the differences. Then you can discuss the strength of the essay questions. In other words, the advantages, such that it tests the achievement of goals of the syllabus at high levels. It indicates learners' ability to approach issues analytically using their existing knowledge. It minimizes guesswork. And then also the weaknesses or the disadvantages. For example, one big disadvantage of the essay question is that it encourages spotting. Sometimes learners only do prepare this essay question because they have an idea that this essay question will be asked by the teacher. And then they spot, and if it doesn't come in and they haven't prepared for all the other questions, then they are gone in that specific assessment. So that is one of the weaknesses whereby it encourages spotting. Right. The next slide deals with alternative assessments. or e-portfolios specifically. Now, going through the school system and the higher education system, we know that tests, exams, assignments are the type of assessments that we are used to. We've always done that. And they are referred to as traditional assessment. Traditional means that is how we've always been doing it. But as with anything else in life, assessment, the nature of assessment also changes due to technological changes in society. Alternative assessments such as the e-portfolio, which is paper-based or electronic, is coming to the fore. The move from teacher-centered to student-centered approaches to teaching implies that traditional assessment measures have also changed. And as I've stated here in the second bullet, one of the tools of alternative assessment is paper-based or electronic portfolios. Electronic E stands for e-portfolios. An e-portfolio is a digitized collection of artifacts, including demonstrations, resources, and accomplishments that represent an individual, group, or institution. The e-portfolio consists of student work that displays mastery of skill of the task and expression in the subject. In the e-portfolio, several pieces like podcasts, DVDs, or CDs, lesson plans, etc., of evidence must be submitted by the student. Specific criteria will be provided to assess the portfolio. Now, the e-portfolio, as we said, is a purposeful collection of student work that shows students' efforts, progress, and achievements. In paragraph 6 in your learning unit, the background, the types, the benefits, disadvantages, and the types of evidence to be included in it is discussed. And for the assessment question 4.8 is assessing why would you want to make use of it and the types of evidence to be included in it. Now, this is a straightforward question and it's a relatively easy answer. You must just say, but remember the question is split into two. Why would you want to make use of it? Because we want to move with the times. It's in line with the fourth industrial revolution in terms of technology, and the types of evidence to be included is a written assignment, a research project, podcasts, PowerPoint presentations, related articles, cartoons, etc. Now the answer may look straightforward because it is provided in your learning unit. But remember, students, when you answer, you cannot answer straight from your study material. You need to paraphrase your study material. Otherwise, you can be accused of plagiarizing. So look carefully before you answer the question. The answer is there, but you need to answer in your own words. Then lastly, I wanted to talk about this issue of dishonesty and plagiarism, because this is a big issue for the university at this moment in time. Although your lecturers can provide you with information about reference techniques and guidelines to avoid plagiarism, you also have a responsibility to fulfill in this regard. Should you at any time feel unsure about the requirements, you must consult your lecturers before you submit any assignment. All right? You are guilty of plagiarism when you extract information from a book, article, web page, or fellow student without acknowledging the source and submit it as your own work. If you write something straight from a textbook as your answer, it is plagiarism. You must acknowledge the source before you submit the answer. You may not use another student's work, right? Neither may another student use your work and it's submitted as their own. Last year we had a number of students in this specific module that wrote word for word from each other. I don't know if they hope that they would not be discovered. But remember, we make use of the Turnitin tool to assist us to pick up on these issues. And you are being warned that students who are guilty of plagiarism will forfeit all credit for the work concerned. We will mark the work, but you won't get the marks. Plagiarism is a serious violation of the university's regulation, and it may lead to your expulsion. Remember, you want to pass this module on your own steam and not be assisted by anything irregularly. I thank you, students.